Hi guys, this is a 60-minute deep stretch class. You might want a blanket, potentially a chair to fold forward on, and maybe a block. So this week we're getting into a seated wide leg fold, and I'll talk more about our theme as we get into some of our postures. So we're going to start in legs in the air, whatever. If you're near a wall, you can start at a wall, or maybe fold a blanket, not fold a block, that'd be very difficult. Put a block under the low back. I'll make my way to my mat, and you guys as well, and we'll the easiest way to get into this would be from kind of a supported bridge posture. You'll want to lift those hips, place any block under that low back, maybe scoot the shoulders back. You can give this a test one leg at a time. If the prop's not serving you, move it out of the way. We'll just start to come into our space here. Taking a deep inhale in, filling up. Exhale, let it go. Notice what the breath is doing as we shift our perspective. Our theme this week is Vimarsha, and it's asking us to look at our self-awareness. It's the mirror of Shiva. Being on our mats oftentimes gives us that window into being very self-aware, especially in a deep stretched class when we're moving slower. So really check in with what your body needs, where your body's at today, to try to cultivate that self-awareness. Be here for about another minute if you want to make any adjustments. Maybe your arms go up overhead. That'll open the chest and shoulders. You can grab opposite elbows or maybe wrists. Make that shift and then come back to stillness. Softening through the jaw, the hips, maybe circling the ankles here. Moving in one direction and then the other. Take about 5 more rounds of breath. Going to slowly start to bring one foot to the earth at a time. So lowering left foot and then right foot. If you're on some sort of prop, lifting those hips off of the prop and lowering down one vertebrae at a time, or moving the prop out of the way and then lowering one vertebrae at a time. We'll just pause here in this bridge prep for a moment, maybe gently rocking that low back. And then we'll bring knees into the chest, starting with some gentle circles here in one direction. Gentle circles in the other. And then we're going to take a supine twist of your choice. So whatever your body needs, I'll offer some options. So you can leave knees stacked. So maybe bringing shins parallel to the earth, dropping over to the left. You can also cross that right knee over the left for a little bit more of an outer hip stretch as you twist. Or maybe one leg is extended. Taking that supine twist however deeply you need, knowing that we're still early, so don't have to be too aggressive with how deep you twist. We'll check in about a minute. We'll take about 10 more breaths in this reclined twist. So maybe those knees come closer to the face. Maybe that right arm stretches long or comes into a cactus shape. Maybe you adjust your gaze for these last 10 breaths. Inhale deeply. Exhale completely. Start to slowly make your way back through center. Maybe keeping those knees hugged in, rolling that low back. And then we'll switch to the other side. Knees drop to the right. Taking any variations on this supine twist that you did on the other side. You can put a blanket between the knees. And then this time, maybe that right hand comes to the outer left thigh. Left arm can go long or bent. And then settle in, knowing you can always back out if you've gone past your edge, and you don't have to wait for my cue if you need to go further. About 10 more breaths left. So again, maybe those knees need to come closer to the face. I'll stretch the low back. Maybe that top leg extends. Just check in with what this side needs. Take a deep inhale in, full exhale out, and then slowly make your way back through center. Taking any low back circles, knees in opposite directions. We're going to stay reclined for our next posture, but it'll be on our side. So just any other movements you need before moving to that, feel free to take them. Moving into one of my favorite poses, the cat grabbing its tail. So this is a quad stretch, twist, shoulder opener, it's all the things. If you need a strap or a belt or something to hook your foot, you might want to grab that potentially. So we're going to start on our left side, maybe a blanket under the head to kind of span that space. So as those legs stack, hopefully, I'll try not to cut off the sound here, that top leg, so we're laying on our left side, that right leg's gonna go straight out in front of us. That left leg's gonna bend into our right hand, theoretically, and then we're gonna peel that right shoulder open. I'm gonna show the option for if you are pregnant. So if you're pregnant, I would not do this version. I would lay on your side and grab your top quad and just stretch without the twist. And know that you don't have to grab that foot. You can engage the leg and open. Really think about opening that right shoulder. We won't be here for as long. About halfway through this side, so take any adjustments you need. Maybe that top leg comes closer to the face. You can also do a quad stretch from your belly if that's more comfortable. Take a deep inhale, and on the exhale, see if you can get a little deeper. Maybe open that shoulder a little bit more. A couple more breaths here. Slowly, first releasing that bent leg, no matter where you're positioned. And then if that top leg's extended, walking it back, hips will stack. And then either rolling to your belly or your back. We'll just switch to the other side. So laying on your right side, that top leg comes forward, maybe flexing the foot, bottom leg comes into the left hand, and then peeling that left shoulder open, or alternatively being on your belly or your side, taking that quad stretch. Noticing what the breath is doing. If it feels difficult to breathe, know that that's a cue to back out. If the breath feels shortened, like you can't get a full breath, move in a different way. And then try to inhale fully, exhale completely, about halfway through if you want to make adjustments. Maybe that top leg comes closer to the face. You might even be able to grab it with that right hand. Couple more rounds of breath here. Deep inhale in, full exhale out. Slowly releasing the bent leg, and then walking that straightened leg back to stack. And we're all gonna roll to our bellies. Well, you guys are, I'm not. Coming into Sphinx pose. Elbows will be under the shoulders, arms parallel, and just start to take some gentle cat-cows here in Sphinx. So that might mean your pelvis kind of lifts off of the floor a little bit. And then that chest reaches through. Take a couple rounds with your own breath. Noticing if you're holding the glutes as you do this, try to soften those. And then pausing in neutral, so really pushing into the mat, almost pulling energetically the mat towards you, and then taking a gentle neck stretch roll, so dropping that chin down, looking over the right shoulder, switching to the left, and maybe just looking left and right, whatever loosens up the neck a little bit for you. And then coming all the way down to our bellies, we're going to extend our right arm long. I'm going to show this at the wall. This is scorpion arm stretch. So right arm is going to go out directly from the shoulder. Left hand's going to plant. And you're going to gaze at that left hand as you tiptoe those right hands away from you. Hips will stack. Maybe that left leg acts as a kickstand behind you. We'll be here for about a total of 10 breaths. So the next place you can go is that left hand to the low back. Feel free to move there at your leisure. You want that temple, make sure the right side of the head is resting on something. You don't want it floating in space. And then notice where you're holding tension. See if you can send your breath there to soften. Let's take 3 more rounds of breath. So if you haven't taken that arm to the low back and you want to try that, feel free. Maybe you open it a little more. And then slowly, if you have the bind, releasing the bind first. If your leg is bent, stacking hips, and then rolling back to the belly, maybe wiggling the hips from side to side, and we'll move to the left. So that left arm extends out long, right hand tented, gazing at those right fingertips as you walk and stack hips over one another. Maybe that right leg bends. Ten breaths here, making sure that left side of the head is resting on something. If you haven't taken the bind, maybe now's the time that right hand comes to the low back, opening the shoulder, the top shoulder rather. Couple more rounds of breath here. And then slowly coming out of this, moving the arm bind first, placing that on the ground. If that right leg is bent, stacking those hips. And then rolling to the belly, maybe bending the knees this time and windshield wipering them so the feet are facing the ceiling, back and forth. Then we'll make our way gently through a child's pose as a little transition here. So pushing back, knees go as wide as the mat. Palms press into the earth, rocking that from side to side. Option to bend the elbows, maybe thumbs come to that upper back for a little tricep stretch briefly. Take 5 rounds of breath here. And then slowly start to push up to seated. So maybe walking hands towards the knees. We're just gonna sit over onto one side, maybe grabbing your blanket, setting up for our peak pose, wide leg forward fold. So you might wanna fold the blanket in half potentially, and that will go under the sits bones. If you don't need that additional lift, feel free to leave the blanket out. And then whatever you're folding onto, so maybe it's a bolster, maybe it's a block, bringing that out in front of you. We're gonna go through this once, do a little stretchy in between, and then come at it again and see how we feel. So know that we'll get a little break here. Legs don't have to be very wide, but we're gonna sit up tall and then exhale, fold over onto your prop. It's okay if the low back rounds. You should feel this in the hamstrings, the backs of the legs. Try to soften your jaw. I'm going to hold us here for about a minute. And if this is uncomfortable, you can do this pose at the wall. So low back would be on the ground, legs would be wide on the wall. Option for maybe the second time that we go through this. Take about 3 more rounds of breath here. And slowly start to stack shoulders over hips. I'm going to use the chair as kind of a support, but stretching out a little bit. We're going to bend one leg at a time just to kind of move those sits bones around before we come at this again. So bending that left knee, you might find your hips lift. They might move from side to side depending on the surface you're on. Just be gentle with those heels if you have wood floors, or just go with what feels good. Take a couple on each side to just like, this feels so good on the hips. Loosen those hips up. And then take 2 more on each side. And then we'll come at this again. Maybe your legs can go wider. They don't have to. Maybe you help assist by putting hands behind your back. We'll hold this one for a little bit longer. So find a place where you can settle, but we'll lift up tall, exhale, fold forward. Maybe you can go deeper on your prop. Maybe you want to shift to the wall. Whenever you arrive, take a deep breath in, full exhale out, and then start to really pay attention to that breath for the next couple minutes as we sit in silence here. Notice where your thoughts go. Maybe bring them back to the breath. Or a simple mantra I like to use, I am here. And just be in this moment. Discomfort is normal for these longer postures, but pain is not. So if you're feeling pain, back out. If it's just discomfort, maybe notice where you can soften. Take 5 more rounds of breath wherever you are. Slowly start to walk hands under shoulders. Stacking shoulders over hips. Moving any props out of the way. And then just slowly shaking those legs back in towards one another, wiggling those knees out. I'm going to come to a seated posture for a few different stretches. So that can be hero's pose if you noticed that your quads needed a little stretch, or you can come seated on a bolster, or if you had a chair, maybe seated on a chair. We'll just lift up tall. I'm going to start with some lateral bending here. So that right hand's going to plant, left arm's going to go up and over. Depending on the pose that you're in, might determine how far over you go. It's not a competition about how far over you go, but really try to fill up as you breathe into those side ribs, peeling that top arm open. Exhale, breathe into those ribs. If that left shoulder has lifted up towards the ear, roll it down the back. And then no matter which pose you're in, seated or heroes, we're just going to walk those arms forward, gentle forward fold, rounding that upper back. And then walking hands to the left, left hand plants, right arm goes up and over. And then pushing into the floor to peel that top arm just a little bit more open. Deep inhale in. Full exhale out, really breathing into those ribs. Imagine like you can expand each space between the ribs with your breath. If that right shoulder snuck up to the ear, lower it down the back. And then again, walking those hands back through center. And then walking hands back to the hips or the thighs. We're going to cross that right arm across the body, grabbing gently on the wrist, and then plugging that shoulder into its socket. So almost like you're pulling and stretching. I feel it the most in that front right arm. Kind of the opposite of what we did earlier in Scorpion. So just let this feel gentle, hopefully. And then we'll switch sides. So releasing that, maybe shaking out the wrist. We'll do a little wrist stretch after this as well. And then that left arm comes across the chest, grabbing the wrist gently with the right hand, and then plugging that shoulder into the socket. You should feel a stretch across this front. Couple breaths here. Notice if the shoulders lifted up to the ears, roll them down the back. And then letting that go. I'm gonna bring thumb and pointer finger together. It's a mudra, but we're not gonna use it as a mudra. We're gonna use it to stretch the wrist. So stretching the wrist down towards the ground, those three loose fingers will be pointing up towards you. You should feel this stretch in the outer wrists. Lifting that crown tall, couple breaths here. And then slowly letting that go, shaking the wrists out. We're gonna come into table pose, maybe having a block nearby, maybe putting a blanket under the knees. Wiggling those hips from side to side, just to settle into this, and then gazing over that left shoulder, looking at the left hip, getting that side stretch. Do this about 4 times on each side. Letting your pelvis move with you, not fighting against it. And we're going to stretch that right foot to the back of your mat, using the mat kind of for a little resistance and pushing into that calf, those toes to stretch the calf rather, back and forth. I don't know if I said which foot. I have my right leg back. If you do not, that's totally fine. Stay on the leg that you're on. Your bent bottom leg is going to pivot. That right foot is going to land, and that right arm is going to lift high to the sky, supported side plank. And then again, that right arm can reach towards the top of your mat, rounding that side body. And then bringing that right hand down towards the earth. Your leg that is back is going to step forward outside of that right foot, coming into 5 breaths in lizard. So we won't be here for long. Maybe take all 5 breaths of movement, so making circles with the hips, toes trying to dial forward, but if you have knee issues, maybe the toes go off the mat. And then think about shoulders down the back, hip forward. Moving from side to side if that feels good. Two more rounds of breath. And then we're going to push hips back into half splits, toes come towards the ceiling, flexing. Maybe you wiggle those feet, the feet from side to side. You can point and flex. And then if you like or need that IT band stretch, hands can walk off the right side edge of that leg for a, I was going to say gentle. It's not very gentle. It can be intense. So be gentle with yourself. Driving through the ball of that foot. And then walking back through center, we're going to walk all the way around so that right foot's going to stay extended. We're going to come into half split. So hips go back towards that left heel. Arms stretch out long. Forehead can maybe find a block. Take 5 rounds of breath here. Those right toes might point up towards the ceiling or stay grounded, whatever your ankle mobility is. And then slowly pushing up, stacking, rather putting hands under shoulders, and then we'll walk back around towards the top of our mat. That front foot is going to step to the back, meeting its friend in table pose, and we'll take that all on the other side. So if I'm saying the opposite leg that you did, just do the one that you did not do yet. So that left foot's going to step to the back of the mat first, flexing into those toes to stretch the calf. And then we'll pivot that bottom leg back behind you. That extended leg grounds into the mat. Arm reaches high, supported side plank staying here, or stretching that left top arm towards the front of your mat. And then grounding that extended arm. The leg that is back is going to step to the top of your mat. Might have to help it up there. Coming into lizard for about 5 breaths. Maybe you find movement. Maybe you find stillness. Maybe you find a drink of water like I will. Shoulders down the back. Deep inhale here. Full exhale out. 2 more breaths. And then slowly start to walk the hips back. That front leg extends long. 4 half splits, toes towards the face. Maybe go side to side. Maybe you point and flex. Think about pulling. Notice where the hips go. Maybe they jut to the right. Try to bring them back towards center. And then staying here or taking, maybe you have that block off to the left side of, or off the leg that's extended, taking that IT band stretch. Two more breaths. And then walking around all the way, so shoulder or hands are under shoulders, coming almost into that supported side plank we were in, coming into that half child's pose, hips towards that back heel, arms extended long, maybe support under the forehead. And then know that those left toes or the extended toes might lift. 5 breaths here. Slowly bringing hands under shoulders, walking around to that front leg again. And then that leg's going to meet in table pose, just shifting those hips from side to side. We'll all make our way to our backs. bringing any props you'll need for rest. We'll take a few more poses before we get there. But coming to your back, setting up for some moving bridge here. So feet will be as wide as the hips. Maybe to get that set, you put a block in between them, not wide, but long ways, engaging the glutes and the thighs. Shoulders tucked under the back. Inhale, lifting the hips towards the ceiling. We'll take 3 breaths in that lifted pose. We'll get to this 2 more times. So if it's not your most extended bridge, don't worry about it. And then lifting to the tippy toes, rolling down 1 vertebrae at a time. Maybe feet go as wide as the mat. You can windshield wiper those legs from side to side. We'll take that again and know that if you want to take a supported bridge for this next 2, feel free. You can place a block maybe on the flattest height, maybe the second highest under that sacrum. On an inhale, we'll again drive those heels, lift the hips, shoulders under the back, maybe arms lift to grab opposite elbows. 3 breaths lifted. Or if you're taking the supported, just stay there for the remainder of these 2 takes. Lifting to the tiptoes, rolling down 1 vertebrae at a time. Windshield wipering, knees from side to side. Last time through, adding a bind if you would like. So we'll ground into the heels, lifting up. Maybe you don't have the bind, that's totally fine. I don't at the moment. So you can pull the side of your mat to help open those shoulders, or you can clasp hands underneath that low back. 3 breaths here, or if you're in supported, staying there. Lifting to the tiptoes. If you're in a supported, and lifting to the toes as well, moving that prop, lowering 1 vertebrae at a time. And the last time with those windshield wipers, knees to the side. And we're going to come into a reclined Baddha Konasana, but lifted. So sometimes we do this on the ground, and feel free to do that. I've personally been enjoying grabbing my ankles and bringing soles of the feet together. It's kind of an alternative to happy baby. So maybe starting here, just rocking from side to side in this butterfly pose. And then if you want to move to happy baby, those feet would go towards the ceiling, grabbing thighs, calves, maybe the feet. If you have the feet, pushing feet into hands to stretch the backs of the shoulders. Or you can stay in that butterfly. Can rock from side to side. Take a couple more rounds of breath here. And we'll set up for final rest pose, Shavasana, whatever that looks like for you. Maybe it's on your side, maybe it's seated. Maybe you have that chair, you can place your calves on it to help that low back. Take as much time as you need to get there. There's no hurry. And if there's anything missing from your class today, your practice, feel free to take that posture. But once you arrive in that final rest, take a deep inhale in, maybe tensing everything up. Exhale, relax into your mat, the floor. Thinking about this idea of Vimarsha, the capacity that you have or the capacity you can develop to see your true nature. So maybe thinking about that as you rest for the next 5 minutes or so in silence. Following your breath, letting your thoughts slip away. Slowly and gently start to bring your awareness back to your physical space. Maybe that starts by deepening inhales and exhales. You can bring smaller movements to the fingers and toes, ankles and wrists. Maybe rocking your head from side to side. You can take a full body stretch. If you're on your back, maybe hugging the knees into the chest. Giving yourself a big, grateful squeeze. And if it's comfortable, tipping over to one side. If not, you can come straight up to seated. If you do tip to your side, stay there for around a breath in this posture of rebirth. And then slowly, gently, maybe with eyes still closed, make your way to a cross-legged seated posture. Hands can rest on the thighs. And then we'll draw hands to heart center, left palm in union with right palm. Bowing chin towards our chest, thanking ourselves and those for practicing in community. Namaste in its simplest form means the light in me honors and acknowledges the light within each of you. Bowing forward to seal your practice. Namaste.